At the end of her life, an old woman reveals a shocking secret that shocks her family. Dear viewers, welcome to our channel. Subscribe to receive more stories every day. Helena, a 95-year-old woman, was walking with her granddaughter Sophia along the beachside boardwalk in their town. But suddenly, the elderly woman pointed her finger at an older man sitting on a bench and said, "That man is your father." Sophia began to laugh. Her father was still alive and doing well. For her, this was just another one of her grandmother's confused statements. However, the features of that man were strangely similar to hers. Even though it seemed absurd, Sophia couldn't stop thinking about the man for a long time. Sophia lived alone with her grandmother. Their family was large, but only she was willing to take care of Helena. Sophia's father, Paolo, lived alone and they rarely spoke. Sophia struggled with health challenges, juggling multiple jobs to afford her grandmother's care while trying to maintain a connection with her father. Every morning, Sophia and Helena took the same walk by the beach, and almost always that man was there, sitting alone. Helena would always make the same gesture. She raised her hand, pointed at the man and said, "That is your father." Sophia grew increasingly anxious. She knew that her grandmother's mind wasn't as sharp as it used to be, and that she often said things that didn't make sense. But the repetition of this claim troubled her deeply. Finally, Sophia decided to investigate. She confided in a close friend, who suggested that Sophia check old medical records or speak to someone who might know the truth. Following this advice, Sophia managed to locate old hospital documents. To her shock, the records revealed inconsistencies regarding her birth and parentage. According to these records, both of her supposed parents were listed with blood types that made it impossible for Sophia to be their biological child. Unsure of what to believe, Sophia sought advice from a former doctor who had worked at the hospital where she was born. The doctor confirmed that the birth dates and blood types didn't match, further deepening Sophia's doubts. Troubled by these discoveries, Sophia began visiting the boardwalk more frequently, often without her grandmother. One day, she encountered the same elderly man and decided to sit next to him. They struck up a conversation, and Sophia learned that his name was Joachim. Joachim was a widower who had lost his wife to cancer years earlier. His only daughter had tragically passed away at 18 due to a rare genetic disease. Since then, Joachim had lived alone in a large, comfortable house. Though retired, he still engaged in volunteer work to keep busy and avoid loneliness. Sophia began visiting the boardwalk more often, just to chat with Joachim and learn more about him. At home, she attempted to pry information from Helena, but most of it was incoherent. Sophia felt she was at a dead end and was ready to give up her search for the truth. Despite her confusion, Sophia couldn't shake the suspicion that she was adopted. She finally gathered the courage to ask Paolo, her father. After preparing his favorite meal, Sophia directly asked if she was adopted. Paolo chuckled at first, assuring her that she was his daughter. Sophia then explained what she had discovered. Paolo grew serious. Lacking much formal education, he couldn't grasp all the details, but he simply said, "I was there when you were born. I held you in my arms. You've been my child from the very start. You are my daughter, and nothing will ever change that." Sophia was comforted by these words, deciding it was best to focus on the love she shared with her father and grandmother. Life resumed as usual until one hot day when Sophia left Helena alone to buy water. When she returned, she found Joachim talking to her grandmother. "Good morning. Is she your grandmother? I was just trying to talk to her, but she doesn't seem very clear-headed. I was asking her name because she reminds me of someone I used to know long ago," Joachim said. Sophia mentioned her grandmother's name, and Joachim's face lit up. "Helena. I can't believe it's her. She worked in my house for many years, but then she moved on to a better job at the hospital, and we lost touch," Joachim said. Sophia was stunned to learn that her grandmother had once worked for Joachim. She discovered that Helena had been a great help during the years Joachim cared for his sick daughter. Helena would assist whenever she could, but after a few years she stopped visiting and they never reconnected. Now more determined than ever, Sophia wanted to know the full truth. There were too many coincidences to ignore. Joachim continued sharing memories of the past. He mentioned briefly knowing Sophia's mother, although they never became close. He also recalled how her mother had referred to Sophia as her little miracle, because she had previously lost 3 babies, making Sophia's survival an extraordinary blessing. Suddenly, everything began to fall into place for Sophia. She quickly went to see Paolo and asked him more about her mother and the children she lost. Paolo confirmed everything Joachim had said about the previous pregnancies, but noted that they never understood why the babies didn't survive. Sophia felt certain she knew the truth. She needed to hear it from the one person who could confirm it: her grandmother. Over the next few days, Sophia tried talking to Helena, but most of the conversations were disjointed. Helena's moments of clarity were rare, leaving Sophia in a painful wait. One morning, Helena woke up unusually alert and said, "Good morning, Sophia. You seem so weary. Is something wrong?" Sophia took a deep breath and said, "Grandma, I need to know the truth. I've pieced together a lot, but I need to hear it from you. Please tell me who my real parents are." Helena paused for a long moment, her eyes filling with tears. "My dear Sophia, I committed a grave sin, one that I know I'll never be forgiven for, no matter how long I live. I kept this secret for selfish reasons, even though I convinced myself it was for the good of the family. Paolo and his wife longed for a child, and I dreamed of being a grandmother and seeing my son and his wife happy. But after so many losses, they were devastated. We were poor and couldn't afford proper medical care. I worked for many years at Joachim's home. He too was desperate for a child with his wife. Both Paolo's wife and Joachim's wife became pregnant around the same time and gave birth on the same day. When you were born, I was working at the hospital. I knew what I did was wrong, but I switched you with Joachim's daughter when no one was looking. Back then, there weren't the same security measures there are now. I couldn't stand to see my son suffer anymore, and I feared for his sanity. You were Joachim's daughter. I knew that Paolo's child wouldn't survive long in our conditions, so I placed her in your place. In Joachim's home, she lived for 18 years. If she had stayed with us, she wouldn't have lasted even a year. I damned my soul, but I gave my son a wonderful daughter and allowed my biological granddaughter to live a better life. I know this sin is unforgivable. I never told anyone. I hope someday you can find it in your heart to forgive me. This is a burden I'll carry for the rest of my days." When Helena finished speaking, Sophia broke down in tears but remained silent. She didn't feel anger or sadness, just deep sympathy for what her grandmother had gone through and the impossible choices she had made. The weight of the confession overwhelmed Helena, and she had a panic attack, collapsing from the stress. Sophia rushed her to the hospital, praying that her grandmother would recover. While Helena was unconscious, Sophia reflected on what she should do. It was a monumental secret to carry alone. Both Paolo and Joachim deserved to know the truth. Sophia first spoke to Paolo, the father who had raised her. Paolo's eyes filled with sorrow. "You're my daughter, Sophia, no matter what. But I wish I had known my biological daughter while she was still alive." Paolo expressed forgiveness toward Helena, acknowledging that she had done something terrible but out of desperation. Finally, Sophia reached out to Joachim. She didn't have his contact information, so she waited for him at the boardwalk. When he arrived, she invited him for coffee and gently revealed everything she had learned. Joachim's face darkened. "I can't believe this. She took my biological daughter from me and let me raise a child she knew was ill. How could she do that? I trusted her like a friend, and she betrayed me. I need to confirm this with a DNA test." Joachim's anger was palpable, his disappointment clear. Helena was discharged from the hospital, and Sophia arranged for a DNA test. The results confirmed that Joachim was indeed her biological father. Upon learning this, Joachim told Sophia, "Even if you are my daughter by blood, I can't just start feeling like your father overnight. I don't know how to process this. Please don't reach out to me anymore." Sophia wept but respected his wishes. As time passed, Sophia resumed her life. Helena's lucid moments grew fewer, which Sophia found to be a blessing, as those moments brought her grandmother nothing but regret and sadness. Sophia eventually found out where the girl who had been switched with her was buried, and decided to visit the grave. Though they weren't related by blood, Sophia felt as though they were sisters. She visited the cemetery, found the grave, and spent a few minutes praying for the girl's soul. As she stood there, she felt a hand on her shoulder. It was Joachim. He said, "I'm not a bitter person, Sophia, but losing my daughter changed everything for me. Bringing her home was the happiest day of my life. But as she grew, her illness became more apparent. My wife and I suffered through it all. She eventually stopped walking, talking, and sometimes she would cry without reason. When she passed away, our world collapsed. My wife couldn't handle it, and her grief made her sick. Cancer claimed her a few years later, leaving me alone. I've spent years trying to understand why life took such a turn. What Helena did shook my world, but I don't want to carry bitterness forever. It only poisons you. Now I'm trying to see it differently. Life gave me 2 daughters, one who's no longer with me, and another who I'm just starting to know." Sophia embraced him. In time, Paolo and Joachim met and developed a respectful relationship. Joachim remained distant toward Helena, greeting her politely but never engaging beyond that. Despite everything, Sophia felt grateful. She had 2 fathers who loved her, and over time, she found peace knowing that the truth, though painful, had finally come to light. Dear viewers, thank you for watching. If you like this story, please subscribe to our channel to receive more stories every day. Share with us what you think of this story.